The aspect of Three Houses that was most compelling to me was the development of deep-seated philosophies that each of the house leaders had, and what was ultimately what made their positions irreconcilable, creating the conflict within the story. So I thought that I could make a new series that really investigates the worldviews of each house leader, because their philosophies are quite nuanced and can be easy to misinterpret if you don't think them through. Dimitri's philosophy is a pretty interesting one, especially seeing how it's impacted by his trauma during the tragedy of Duscur and develops throughout the entirety of the game, which is why I'll be focusing on Dimitri in the first episode of this potential series. Ideally, Dimitri's philosophy reflects a desire to understand others and to help them grow like his adoptive father Rodrigue did for him. In his Sea Support with Byleth, he explains his noble endeavor to be to others what Rodrigue was to him.
This may sound a bit arrogant, but I feel it's my responsibility to help them. Rodrigue is more like a second father. It might sound ridiculous, but he's the kind of man I hope to become one day. Someone who helps others. Someone who can reach out and save a lost soul.
Unlike his ideological counterpart Edelgard, Dimitri doesn't think that anyone can know what's best for others and wants to empower people to grow in the ways that they think is best for themselves. Dimitri's conversation with Edelgard before the invasion of Enbar epitomizes his belief in the necessity of others making their choices in life. He basically tells her that he believes in the power of the people of Fodlan to rise up and make changes that they want to see in the world should they desire it. In fact, he specifically criticizes Edelgard's proactive and controlling approach to freeing the people of Fodlan. This philosophy appears to be the reason why Dimitri implements a more representative system of governance within the ending of the Blue Lions route. In Dimitri's philosophy, Edelgard's War of Liberation necessarily will not liberate the people of Fodlan from oppression, because her means of liberation are just as authoritative as the Church's oppression at the start of the game. It's also worth noting that Dimitri doesn't view helping people as a consequentialist endeavor like Edelgard, and instead views helping as a process. In Dimitri's view, the process with which one achieves a virtuous goal is just as, if not more important than the goal itself, which is one of the reasons why Dimitri and Edelgard's views are fundamentally irreconcilable. Dimitri discusses his disapproval of consequentialism after defeating Lord Lenato, where he can't help but feel taking lives to protect some is unjustifiable. In Dimitri's perspective, there are always people who have justifications for cruel or callous acts, but he believes that unjust means cannot lead to just ends. He understands the contradiction of this viewpoint at the time, but is simply unable to reconcile this noble ideal with the realities of war. Once he gives in to his dark personality traits after the time skip, Dimitri goes far into another school of thought that can lead to addressing his philosophy's contradictions if he's able to conquer the hate of this new philosophy. His noble ideals are tainted with an undercurrent of rage and regret that lead Dimitri down a destructive path that ends up killing him in most routes. Dimitri ends up becoming disillusioned with the world after what he sees as injustice is continually forced onto the weak and innocent without anyone putting a stop to it. As a result, Dimitri is willing to lower himself to their level in his mind by killing them for the sake of protecting the weak and innocent from suffering any injustice. In enacting his vengeance against who he perceives to be wicked, Dimitri is simultaneously able to fulfill his noble ideal in the only way he can within such an imperfect world, and he fulfills his dark desire for vengeance and punishment seemingly imposed on him by his trauma simultaneously. Dimitri gets so caught up in the injustice of the world that he attempts to follow through on what he perceives to be the desires of the dead in the form of revenge, and really his unhealthy fixation on revenge for the dead is a perversion of his ideal to empower the wills of others when combined with his traumatic loss of most of his family. The most destructive aspect of his dark philosophy after the time skip is his resentment for being unable to fulfill the desires of the dead and for others being oppressed. However, if he has the proper guidance, he is able to finally understand how destructive that resentment really can be. I think it's best to read the development of Dimitri's philosophy throughout the Blue Lions route within the context of a Hegelian dialectic. For those unfamiliar with the Hegelian dialectic, there is a thesis of an idea, which is then challenged by an antithetical one, and the resulting conflict from the discourse of both ideas synthesizes a new one. Dimitri's thesis is his positive philosophy of helping people in just ways. Then his dark personality traits and his disillusionment with the world create his antithetical philosophy that focuses instead on punishing the wicked for abusing their power over others. Both contradictory philosophies are sides of the same valued coin, with both focusing on advocating for the weak, the sole difference being in how he goes about achieving that ideal. Dimitri's A-support with Byleth is great at showcasing the synthesis that Dimitri finds between the two aforementioned philosophies, when his seemingly good action of teaching orphans sword fighting before the time skip leads to them becoming bandits. Dimitri has to accept that his good intentions and ideas to help others grow can sometimes help build people up to still make the wrong choices. All the same, the orphans turned into bandits were defeated, and Dimitri realizes that he must come to accept his destructive side, because of how it helps stop bad actors from getting out of control. Dimitri even hints at this development after the Gautier inheritance mission, where he questions whether or not the unacceptable should be shunned or accepted despite its imperfect nature.
Everyone has something that is unacceptable within them. I certainly do, and I'd wager you do as well. I wonder which is best, Professor. To cut away that which is unacceptable, or to find a way to accept it anyway?
In fact, Dimitri's story with Edelgard within his own route reflects this internal conflict when his kindness in giving her the dagger when they were children gave her the strength to endure her torture at the hand of the Adrestian court. Dimitri did exactly as he believed in by giving Edelgard the encouragement and strength to persevere, but it also had an unintended effect in leading Edelgard to become a leader that would ultimately act in unjust ways, according to Dimitri. Dimitri's story finishes when he attempts to once again help Edelgard after letting go of his hate, but is forced to kill her after she stabs him with the knife that he gave her all those years ago. Dimitri finally completes his narrative arc and philosophy, realizing that creation and destruction are both necessary components of life, and just as he had provided Edelgard the strength to build herself up, he must also take her down when she lost her way. To tie this all to the work of one specific philosopher, Dimitri's final philosophy and its development is pretty reminiscent of the philosophy of Friedrich Nietzsche. I know it sounds like a bit of a stretch, but some of Nietzsche's major concepts present themselves within Dimitri's philosophy. To grossly paraphrase Nietzsche's philosophy, it's centered on the event and the importance of becoming and creativity in human beings. Dimitri is a similar concept even if he doesn't use the same terminology. Dimitri's ethical ideas focus on helping people to become the ideal versions of themselves, much like how Nietzsche emphasizes the importance of individually growing and expressing oneself. Nietzsche also emphasizes that creation and destruction are necessary components of human expression and growth, which Dimitri's philosophical arc directly mirrors. Dimitri's hate is fundamentally his will's anger that those who have died are unable to express themselves or fulfill their wills any longer. It takes the entirety of the game for Dimitri to realize that this is a fruitless endeavor, and is able to reconcile the contradictions of his two philosophies to become the Savior King. Dimitri's completed philosophy at the end of the Blue Lions route ends up turning him into a leader who can inspire people to be all that they can be. Hopefully you all enjoyed this new series, and if you did, be sure to like the video and leave a comment below letting me know what you thought. And I'll also do more for the other lords in the game. I also wanted to say thank you for 500 subscribers. It's always nice to hit a big milestone, and I really appreciate it. So, until next time.